This is Hakeem Jeffries.
President Kelly, so appreciative of his leadership and his partnership, his strength and his resilience for such a time as this. After he finished his remarks, I was tempted to get up here and say, let the church say amen. Because he's brought a word on today. We are standing in solidarity with each and every one of you during this incredibly fragile time. I wanted to make sure I crossed the street to make it clear that the attack on you, the attack on the civil service is unacceptable, unconscionable, un-American, and we are going to stand with you until each and every one of those unlawful executive orders are fully and completely reversed, buried in the ground, never to rise again.
In a lot of ways currently, which is the bureaucracy, which has in a lot of ways currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want, and it's not. It does not match the will of people. So it's just something we've got to fix. And we've also got to address the deficit. So we've got a $2 trillion deficit, and if we don't do something about this deficit, the country's going bankrupt. I mean, it's really astounding that the interest payments alone on the national debt exceed the Defense Department budget, which is shocking because we spend a lot of money on defense, but if that just keeps going, we're essentially going to bankrupt the country. So what I really want to say is, like, it's not optional for us to reduce the federal expenses. It's essential. It's essential for America to remain solvent as a country, and it's essential for America to have the resources necessary to provide things to its citizens and not simply be servicing vast amounts of debt.
And also, could you mention some of the things that your team has found, some of the crazy numbers, including the woman that walked away with about $30 million,
right?
etc.
Well, we
What? I'm sorry, who? That's crazy.
we do find it sort of rather odd that there are quite a few people in the bureaucracy who have ostensibly a salary of a few $100,000, but somehow manage to accrue tens of millions of dollars in net worth while they are in that position, which is, what happened to USAID. We're just curious as to where it came from. Maybe they're very good at investing, in which case we should take.
Hold on, little man, you got to cover your mouth. Yeah, that is true. How do you accumulate tens of millions of dollars in net worth, but you got a $200,000 salary? Shout out to Congress. Shout out to Nancy Pelosi.
Investment advice, perhaps. But just there seems to be mysteriously they get wealthy. We don't know why. Where does it come from? And I think the reality is that they're getting wealthy at taxpayer expense. That's the honest truth of it. So we're looking at if you look at say Treasury, for example, basic controls that should be in place. That are in place in any company, such as making sure that any given payment has a payment categorization code, that there is a comment field that describes the payment, and that if a payment is on the do not pay list, that you don't actually pay it. None of those things are true currently. So the reason that departments can't pass audits is because the payments don't have a categorization code. It's like just a massive number of blank checks just flying out the building. So you can't reconcile blank checks. You've got comment fields that are also blank, so you don't know why the payment was made. And then we've got this truly absurd, a do not pay list, which can take up to a year for an organization to get on a do not pay list. And this, we're talking about terrorist organizations, we're talking about known fraudsters, known aspects of waste, known things that do not match any congressional appropriation. It can take up to a year to get on the list, and even once on the list is not used. It's mind-blowing. So what we're talking about here, we're really just talking about adding common sense controls that should be present, that haven't been present. So you say, like, well, how could such a thing arise? That seems crazy. When you understand that really everything is geared towards complaint minimization, so that then you understand the motivations. So if people receive money, they don't complain, obviously. But if people don't receive money, they do complain. And the fraudsters complain the loudest and the fastest. So then when you understand that, then it makes sense. Oh, that's why everything they approve all the payments at Treasury. Because if you approve all the payments, you don't get complaints. We're saying that, no, actually, we are going to complain. If money is spent badly, if your taxpayer dollars are not spent in a sensible and frugal manner, then that's not okay. Your tax dollars need to be spent wisely on things that matter to the people. And I mean, these things, it's just common sense. It's not draconian or radical, I think. It's really just saying, let's look at each of these expenditures and say, is this actually in the best interest of the people? And if it is, it's approved. If it's not, we should think about it. So, there's crazy things like we just cursory examination of Social Security, and we've got people in there that are 150 years old. Now, do you know anyone that's 150? I don't. Okay. They should be on the Guinness Book of World Records. They're missing out. That's a case where, I think they're probably dead. It's my guess. Or they should be very famous, one of the two. And then there's a whole bunch of Social Security payments where there's no identifying information. Well, why is there no identifying information? Obviously, we want to make sure that people who deserve to receive Social Security do receive it, and that they receive it quickly and accurately.
That's insane, bro.
I'll tell you another crazy thing. So, one of the things is we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this. Obviously, there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, let's, if people can retire, with full benefits and everything, that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually
calculated. This is insane. This is the craziest shit that I've seen in a long time. Dog, if this ain't the biggest fraud in history, this is the biggest fraud in history, in the history of our country, in my lifetime, certainly. This is absolutely crazy, bro.
Then it goes down a mine. And what do you mean a mine? There's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork.
What?
And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government.
No freaking way. What in the world is happening in the United States of the Americas? Yo, we need to drain this swamp ASAP.
I stand here with all of you, having grown up, been born in Brooklyn Hospital, raised in a working class neighborhood.
Yes, sir.
In central Brooklyn, grew up in a union household.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Both my parents, public employees throughout their entire lives.
All right, sir.
My mom, 45 years working for the city of New York. My father, 30 years working as a substance abuse counselor.
Wow.
For the state of New York.
Awesome.
And so I stand here today not just as a member of Congress, but as a member of your family. The family of public employees who serve this country well.
A few moments later. Elon Musk has accused the Federal Emergency Management Agency of diverting funds meant for American disaster relief. According to Musk, FEMA sent a staggering $59 million to luxury hotels in New York City to house illegal migrants. a move he says violates the president's executive order and is a gross misuse of taxpayer money. Musk claimed that his Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, recently uncovered the funds and vowed that a clawback demand will be made to recoup the money. This controversy comes as the Trump administration intensifies efforts to overhaul FEMA. Last month, President Trump signed an executive order establishing a council to review the agency amid concerns over political bias. The new directive calls for the council's first meeting within 90 days and requires a report of its findings within 180 days. Trump has been long critical of FEMA, arguing that the agency bungles emergency relief efforts and should either be fundamentally reformed or even dismantled. He has previously denounced FEMA's performance, asserting that federal disaster aid should be given directly to states rather than managed by an inefficient agency. Funding for FEMA has soared in recent years following several high-profile weather disasters, and the agency now faces scrutiny over how it allocates emergency resources. The Trump administration's latest measures are part of a broader strategy to ensure that federal funds are used solely for American disaster relief and to strengthen national security.
For more stories just like these,
The Department of Homeland Security fired 4 Federal Emergency Management Agency employees after a DOGE report accusing them of paying out $59 million to New York City hotels to help cover costs associated with the migrant crisis. DHS spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin told the Washington Examiner the federal department was parting ways with 4 government workers because they went around leadership to pay out tens of millions of dollars. McLaughlin says, quote, under President Trump and Secretary Noem's leadership, DHS will not sit idly and allow deep state activists to undermine the will and safety of the American people. The news comes after FEMA suspended the payments following the DOGE report. FEMA head Caroline Hamilton said, quote, these payments have all been suspended from FEMA. Personnel will be held accountable. New York City's Deputy Press Secretary, Liz Garcia, maintained the city was in the clear and did nothing wrong in requesting emergency funding from FEMA to help cover billions of dollars in costs related to housing, feeding, and caring for 223,000 migrants. The city maintained it never paid luxury hotel rates, the funding was appropriated by Congress during the previous administration, and the majority of people housed were families. New York City said it applied for these non-disaster relief funds in April 2024, and FEMA allocated them this year.
I'll also be signing an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good.
President Donald Trump signed an executive order that established a council to determine whether FEMA should be eliminated.
DeSantis is calling on his state's emergency management division to investigate what he calls the federal government's targeted discrimination toward Floridians who support Donald Trump. This comes after the Federal Emergency Management Agency confirmed that a supervisor told relief workers responding to Florida after Hurricane Milton to, quote, avoid homes with signs in support of the now president-elect. That person also reportedly put out a memo telling workers to stay together, follow the rules, and practice of de-escalation tactics. FEMA employees told news outlets at least 20 different homes with Trump signs or flags were passed after the storm because of the order. A FEMA spokesperson says the supervisor is no longer working in Florida.
You should be respected, not rejected. You should be lifted up, not torn down. You should be embraced, not discarded.
Well, I tell you what, it certainly feels like there's a midterm around the corner. Hakeem Jeffries there, just trying to rally this crowd, trying to get a message going with Democrat voters. I don't know if this works. Someone looking out for your taxpayer dollars has found out how badly abused they all are. Let's stop that person, meaning Elon Musk. I mean, I don't know if this does it. But you saw some of the cameras going up to get stuff that was behind them. I had our team in the control room tell me that's because the crowd is massive out there. So my question would be, Guy Benson, what do you show up for this? What's the takeaway, the deliverable for a voter?
Well, I think for a lot of voters, what they're watching on the screen is the Democratic leader in the House surrounded by federal bureaucrats. And he is going to bat for them. They are cheering him on. But you see all their pre-printed out placards. Someone paid for that. We pay all of their salaries, including Hakeem Jeffries. He at least is elected. They're all unelected bureaucrats. We pay their salaries. And the idea that we can't, as taxpayers, demand a look at how they spend our money and what they're doing on the job, and they're all up in arms about it, I think it's offensive, frankly, to a lot of taxpayers. There was a huge sign, if we were to pull out, that said no one elected Elon Musk. They had a big banner that said that. No one elected any of them either, these bureaucrats. They have been playing games and dispersing our money for decades on end, anonymously with no accountability. And now they're saying, oh, well, Elon's the first unelected guy we don't want looking at our money or handling our money. It's
That's a good
preposterous.
point.
Yeah.